What's up out there, world? Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a safe night in the midst of all the storms. But even in the midst of a storm, we must keep our mind on Jesus. We must keep our mind on the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm here in accordance with their will, once again. So let's get started. All right, today, we're gonna watch a little film today about ideological subversion. Like, I didn't always know this information I'm presenting. I just recently found out about it myself, but I took the time to log out, do my research, and become familiar with the information before I put it out here. I didn't want to present information that I wasn't familiar with. And I used to always ask myself, how did this Confederacy completely erase the memory of our ownership and our birthright of America? How did these confederacies completely disenfranchise us from our God? And I could never figure it out. You know, I kind of got the part about the massacres and the murders, but how did they completely clear it from our minds? And that's what we're here to speak about today. Ideological subversion. Say it with me. Ideological subversion that we all are under. Even myself. We all are under this subversion. We're all victims of the media. We're all victims of Hollywood. We're all victims of the imagery that they constantly place within our minds to keep us asleep and from waking up and realizing that we're actually the indigenous children of God, the rightful owners of America. So this guy right here, let me see what his name is. Let's check this out. Yuri Benminov. Yuri Benminov. Russian, I guess. Sound like a good Russian name. But he's a former KGB agent. And apparently, in 1984, he began blowing the whistle on the psychological warfare that was being placed upon the indigenous people of America. I don't know what got into this Yuri guy heart. Maybe he had a dream. Maybe he got a message from God himself. But this Yuri guy began to expose the evil psychological mind games that these demons play. So let's get into it.
And the success. Most of it is done by...
All right.
Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was the, and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
Okay, let me pause right here and chime in. So, basically, once they infiltrated the government or the federal system, then they needed to be able to wipe completely the minds of the victims of their treacherous plans. So what this guy right here is going to lay out is each step that it takes in order to get us to the mind state where they got us today, where all we do is glorify celebrity, greed, sexual misconduct. We're lost as a nation. But luckily, through Jesus and his Father, the Most High, grace is here. Through this truth that I'm presenting to the people, redemption is offered. But people, you got to wake up. You can't fake your way through this. You got to really believe in God to get on this ride. But look, let's finish checking this out.
It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many?
Okay, chime in right here. Me personally, I can only speak since I've been here. I was born in 1974. So when I think of ideological subversion, I think of Hollywood, whether that be hip hop, R&B, music, period, movies, sports. These are the things that I feel like was used to ideologically subvert me, even including the evening news. Now, as it says right here, step one is demoralization. So I'm going to take it from a hip-hop point of view. You know, when we was young, like I said on the previous video, we had fun. We went outside and played. It wasn't all about being gangster and being tough and killing each other and slapping bitches and hoes. It wasn't about all of that during my youth. But during this time, approximately 1984, they began to introduce a different mind state and place it upon the people, the indigenous people of North America. They began to introduce this gangster, Schoolie D, Ice-T, Ice Cube mind state. Fast forward to 2022, 2021, now everybody gangster. Everybody killing each other. Everybody slapping bitches. Everybody pimping. Everybody hoeing. People proud to be the side piece. Well, that was the ideological subversion that was placed upon the children of God's mind. And the people who did that, they will pay. But, once again, through this truth, I'm revealing in accordance with the will of the Most High and his Son, Jesus Christ. It's just not me. I know it's hard for some people to believe, but they came to me and told me to present this information to the public. So I don't want to take the credit for it. I just want to give all the credit where the credit is due to the Most High and his Son, Jesus Christ. Let's move on, people.
Many years, because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology, one generation of students. In demoralization, it takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being...
All right, I know he spoke of Marxism and Leninism, but we're not speaking about that. We're speaking about this crafty council of evil European bankers who are corrupting the society and the children of God. Now, I don't want to put all of this on hip-hop, because hip-hop wasn't the ideological subversion in totality. We can turn to TV too. You know, in 1984, it was all about Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, and killing and shooting. And so from every angle they was hitting us and demoralizing us and bringing us down to our lower selves. Our lower selves is the devil. So they was converting us all into little devils. But once again, this truth that I'm presenting to people that y'all need to grab a hold to and take it to your heart and take it to your head. This truth that I'm presenting is grace. It's a chance for redemption. People need to come back home to the Most High in Jesus Christ. Once again, everything that we see going on right now in the world is all a part of this conclusion that is swiftly coming with no delay. Let's roll on.
Being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to...
That's an interesting concept right there. The first thing popped in my mind is all skin folks ain't kin folks. They got these organizations like the Boule who insert agents into the indigenous people environment and subvert them ideologically. For instance, Marcus Garvey. I've mentioned Marcus Garvey on at least 2 to 3 videos. He was the initial ideological subversion agent in the black community, introducing us to this pan-African ideology. People need to Google into what the word pan actually means. Check out one of my videos because I don't want to focus on their activities. I want to focus on this redemption and this grace and this truth that's being offered to the people all throughout the world. All right, let's roll.
True information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess exposure to true information does not matter anymore. Dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he...
I got to pause it again because I got to be real too. Doing my journey that I'm taking right now, sometimes it's hard for me to believe. So ideological subversion is so powerful, even having knowledge of it does not defeat it. It's only one thing that's going to defeat where we find ourselves right now, currently behind enemy lines on our own land. And guess what it is, y'all? It's what your granny them told you about. It was how you was raised. It's the Lord Jesus Christ. Through his redemption and through his salvation and accepting him as your personal Lord and Savior, you can be saved from this ideological subverted nightmare. Let's move on.
He is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragedy. Take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp. Does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, Even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not
Has anybody seen the weather lately? Let us move on.
before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation.
All right. That's it for today, folks. I just gave you all a little preview into the information I'm presenting. Not only have we been ideologically subverted and disenfranchised, the Pope also sent a letter to bring an end to all of this devilishment. But certain members of certain Greek organizations refuse to go home. It's time for y'all to just get on y'all boat and float up out of here. But we'll be back tomorrow with a little bit more on this ideological subversion. Until then, y'all, focus daily.